Hi class, today we're going to go over the Biomagnification Lab. It basically simulates how a chemical travels through a food chain. The purpose is to observe how contaminants or toxins can accumulate in organisms at higher or different trophic levels. Okay, so you have a materials list here. So you'll notice that you're going to have a bag, and that bag has 80 black beans and 20 white beans, and that's this bag right over here. You're going to have small cups with minnows on them. You have medium cups with, these are bluegill, and you have large cups with osprey on them. Okay? All right, and here's the introduction. Let's go ahead and go through that. So many chemicals produced by industries end up in our waterways through dumping or runoff. Many of these chemicals can accumulate in the cells of organisms that live in the water. These chemicals then move up through the food chain and can be damaging or even fatal to many types of organisms, sometimes even including humans. Although the initial levels of these chemicals might be low, the concentration of these chemicals can increase as they move up food chains. Okay, and this is known as bioaccumulation or biomagnification. So DDT, it's a chemical that was first commonly used in insecticide or pesticides. DDT was relatively inexpensive to manufacture or make, and had long-lasting effects, so it killed lots of pests for very cheap. DDT enters aquatic environments by attaching itself to the surfaces of plankton or algae or accumulating in these cells of these organisms. DDT is harmful to many organisms as it attacks the nervous system of animals. Furthermore, it also has very adverse effects, negative effects, on seabirds. DDT prevents the proper eggshell production in birds, which results in very brittle eggs or fragile eggs, which are then easily broken, and the chicks often die from that. Okay, so I'm going to go through with you briefly how to fill in Table A, but the primary goal is for us to go through one example of how to calculate parts per million in the very first trophic level here. This is the single-celled algae, or the primary producers. And then with your table partner, you're going to go ahead and calculate the parts per million with your table partner. So you're going to calculate parts per million for minnows, for bluegills, and for the osprey, all by yourselves using the instructions. Okay, so let's just go through the procedure of this lab. Step one says, using the information from the food pyramid, that's the food pyramid right here, enter the organisms' names into Table A. Okay, so here are the organisms' names, and you're going to enter that information. So for example, single-celled algae, these are your primary producers, and you'll flip it over to Table A, and you'll see right here it says primary producers. So for the organism's name, you're going to write right here, you're going to write single-celled algae, and you'll do that for all of your other organisms, okay? The next step you'll do, number 2, is you're going to place all the beans into the circle provided, okay? So count to make sure that you have 80 black beans and 20 of the white beans, or the light-colored beans. If you don't have the exact number, just ask your teacher, me or Miss Green, for more supplies. You should have a total of 100 beans, and these are AKA your algae cells. So these beans represent your algae cells, okay, or your primary producers. So let's go ahead and do that. So what you're going to do is you'll empty your beans into the circle very carefully. You don't want them to spill all over the place. And you are going to go ahead and separate out the white beans, and just make sure that there are 20 white beans, and separate out the black beans and make sure that there are 80 black beans. Okay, so we've done that, and we've counted to make sure that there's 80 black beans and there's 20 white beans. Okay, so all of these beans represent your algae cells. So now let's go back over to your lab, and let's see right here. Step number 3. All beans represent your algae cells. The black beans represent the number of algae without the DDT. And the white beans, or the light colored beans, represent the algae with the DDT. So looking over here, these are the algae cells with the DDT chemicals inside of them. And these are just your normal, regular algae cells, okay? Okay, so what you're gonna do now that we have that information, you're gonna enter the total number of algae cells into table A. So over here, where it says table A, where it says total organisms, so this is your algae cells, primary producers. The total number of organisms, what you're going to do right here is you're going to write down 100, because 80 plus 20 equals 100. So you have total 100 algae cells. Okay? All right. And then for step number 4, you need to enter the total amount of algae cells with the DDT in that particular trophic level, the primary producers. And you're going to enter that into table A. So the amount of DDT, it will not change because it is stored in the fat tissues of each organism. So no matter what trophic level you're dealing with, you're still going to have the same number of chemicals. So over here where it says the amount of DDT in this particular trophic level, right here, the primary producer, you're going to enter 20 right here because that's the total amount of DDT that's so far in your trophic level. So you're going to put 20 right here. And then finally, now that you have all that information, you can now calculate the amount of DDT in parts per million, and then you're going to enter that information here. And then this is how you do that. So in order to calculate the amount of DDT in parts per million, that's ppm, you're going to divide the amount of DDT in the trophic level by the total number of organisms. So for example, the total amount of DDT with the infected cells is 20. You have 20 cells that are infected with DDT, and you're going to divide that by the total number of algae cells, which is 100 because you have 100 beans. Okay? So therefore, 20 divided by 100, you can just enter that into your calculator, equals 0.2 parts per million. So you take this number, 0.2 parts per million, and you're going to enter it right here in the very first trophic level. So that's the amount of DDT, 0.2, that is in the very first trophic level, okay? Now I want you to go ahead and work through steps 6 through 17 with your table partner. Just go through it step by step and follow the instructions. And then after you're done, go ahead and finish up the analysis questions, okay? Take your time, read carefully, and go ahead and flip the cups if you have any clarifying questions.